On the morning of July 19, 2004, 28-year-old Mark Hacking woke up to discover that his wife, Lori Sorshacking, had already left for work at Wells Fargo, where she was a stockbroker's assistant. This case made international headlines and quickly became known as Salt Lake City's most high-profile disappearance, but no one could have predicted the series of perplexing lies that were discovered during the search for her, exposing years of secrets and a dark double life. As she always did in the Memory Grove neighborhood of Salt Lake City, Utah, Rory had intended to get up at 5 in the morning and go for a run. When Mark woke up at 8 after inadvertently sleeping in, he assumed Lori had come home and driven herself to work without waking him. This suspicion was confirmed when he noticed that her car was gone, not giving it much thought. She was then going to go back home and get ready for the day, and Mark was going to drive her to work at 7 in the morning. Mark went about his morning as usual until he contacted her workplace at approximately 10 o'clock and discovered she had never shown up. It was then that he noticed the clothing Lori had left out to wear to work were still at home. In fact, he was speaking with Lori's coworker on the phone. Mark was extremely concerned when he realized that she had never returned from running with her clothes. He called 911 shortly after 10 a.m., and the desk sergeant he spoke to informed him that he would have to wait 24 hours to report Lori missing, assuming that the police would not be able to assist him much. He then went to Memory Grove and discovered Lori's car, which was still parked in the same spot where she usually left it while running, but there was no sign of his wife nearby, and her car seemed undisturbed. Soon after, Lori's co-workers showed up to assist with the hunt for her. Several of them had also reported her missing to the police, and Mark and Lori's relatives joined them. When the police got on the site, they learned that Laura always raced along the roadway when she was by herself and only swerved from this path if she had a friend for safety. Laura's loved ones were already inspecting the trail she followed. Mark was extremely agitated when the officers interrogated him, and they observed that he struggled to maintain his calm long enough to talk to them, but he was still able to explain what had transpired. As he was telling a story, Mark said he had previously run his wife's usual path to see if he could locate any evidence of her, which crossed the creek, and explained why his shoes were wet when the police arrived. Mark was so overcome that he collapsed back into Lori's car's passenger side. Just 2 years prior, Salt Lake City was still in shock after the abduction of 14-year-old Elizabeth Smart. Even though Mark had previously thought he would have to wait 24 hours to find Lori, a thorough investigation was started in 2002 with this upsetting incident in mind. K-9 units and helicopters flying low were sent in to aid in the search, but over the course of the following few hours they found nothing, and people started coming forward to share their memories of the event. After Grove and many other women recalled uncomfortable encounters with dubious males in the past, a troubling theory that someone might have abducted Lori from the neighborhood surfaced. Similar to what had occurred to Elizabeth Smart, she was out running. Because the couple was about to have all of their wishes come true, Lori's absence was particularly upsetting. After 5 years of marriage, she and Mark, who had been high school sweethearts, were planning to move to North Carolina, where Mark had been accepted to the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill's medical school to study oncology. Mark had recently received a master's degree in psychology from the University of Utah. Mark was pursuing a career in pediatrics, similar to what one of his brothers had done. The pair had recently celebrated their farewell party at a mountain cabin owned by Lori's boss 3 days prior to her disappearance, and Lori had even quit her cherished job and put her ambitions for an MBA on wait until Mark finished medical school. According to friends and family, Lori was about 5 weeks pregnant, which added to the tragedy of her disappearance. By that afternoon, flyers were posted throughout the city in the hopes that someone had seen her disappearance, but things became complicated when Lori and Mark's neighbor was interviewed. The neighbor mentioned that Lori's car was out in front of the apartment building at 7 a.m. and that she left her house again at 8:30. It remained in place. Some of Lori's co-workers were interviewed because they were close to the couple, and one of them said she hadn't noticed any change in Lori's behavior recently, which was normally a beat, and that her relationship with Mark seemed exceptionally happy. These conflicting witness statements further complicated the investigation. How had she gone for a run and returned home only to have her vehicle found again at Memory Grove? Investigators turned to Mark to explain, but he couldn't clear up the confusion because he was certain Lori's car was gone when he woke up. As is the case with most cases, the spouse is the first suspect. Lori's mother confirmed the sentiment, stating that she and Mark had a wonderful relationship and that they adored each other. Lori called Mark her big old teddy bear. In fact, everyone who knew the couple thought they were happily married and still deeply in love, especially as he had sent her flowers at work. Before realizing Lori was missing, Mark had done something a little strange that morning. He had gone out and bought a new mattress for their bedroom, probably for their move, which was strange, but it wasn't too concerning for investigators later that afternoon on the day that Lori went missing. On the way to the police station, Mark was taken in for a brief questioning. When asked what he meant, Mark said, "Lori is going to be so pissed at me I woke up at 8, and my wife hadn't woken me up when she got home, showered, and left for work at 7. I assumed that's what had happened when I woke up and she was gone." Mark went on to say that if you guys ever find her, she will be furious with me because I didn't go running with her. At the police station, he told an officer his story once more. "I assumed she hadn't woken me up, so I just let myself sleep. I did a few things like playing Nintendo for a while, and we decided we needed a new mattress, so I went shopping and worked at various places before finding one." What time was it exactly? "I left my house at around 9. Investigator asked him. "What was the reason for the call?" "Just say, hey, I want to talk to my wife." Mark initially consented to take the CVSA test, which is a contentious technology that attempts to gauge deception by changes in frequency and stress. When someone talks, let me explain the test to you so you can comprehend it and not be scared of it. Alright, so this is a truth verification machine. Well, if you've watched a movie or seen one on TV, you've probably seen the old-fashioned lie detector test. It's a box with arms wrapping around the papers, you sit in a chair, and he's strapped up and all that. That was created in the 1930s, and while we hope technology has advanced a bit since then, that's what this is. This is just a complete reform. It basically says that you're taking this against your will, and that no one is forcing you to take the test or anything like that. How do you feel? Let me explain if you don't want to. You can leave the door and go back to your car. If I refuse, of course, that makes me look guilty, and it's not admissible in court. In any case, we trust the machine, and the courts just don't. It just gives us something to confirm the information we've received thus far. And clearly, as you stated, we have some concerns about this mattress. Investigators decided to take a closer look at the apartment where they lived after noticing that Mark's behavior was a little strange. They sent police to examine the dumpster in the parking lot outside, and Mark was joined by one of his brothers. He said that the police were there because they were worried that I had purchased a new mattress, and that's why this machine is there. However, I have these circumstances that look bad, so I feel like if I don't take this, I'm just going to be drilled by this. I don't think I want to take them either. However, despite their suspicions about Mark, officers found nothing in the dumpster while searching for Lori. However, Mark's behavior took another odd turn just a few hours after Lori vanished, at 2 a.m. On July 20th, police were called again to a disturbance at a hotel about half a mile from Mark and Lori's apartment. Mark had been spending the night there, and when his brother Scott arrived at the hotel, he discovered an unexpected message written on Mark's PDEA, a handheld computer that read to everyone that this is justice. I'm really sorry that after this occurrence, Mark's family decided to get him help by checking him into a psychiatric facility. There was a very good reason for Mark to try this. He had a secret. In fact, he had many secrets and they were all about to be revealed. Later, FBI profiler Candace DeLong commented on the incident, stating that he kept his shoes on his sandals, which is not typically something we see in someone who is truly psychotic. Many have speculated that Mark may have been trying to play crazy with the intention of being hospitalized. In preparation for his acceptance to medical school, Mark Hacking had been leading a double life. His entire family knew that he was a diligent student who frequently left textbooks open and scattered throughout the couple's apartment. On multiple occasions, he even had Lori's mother assist him in writing term papers. However, the problem is that, even though they were moving to North Carolina soon, this was particularly shocking for his family because Mark had never been accepted to the university there. In fact, he had never applied or anywhere else. This was because Mark had actually traveled across the nation to attend fictitious interviews at several medical schools. But this lie was only the beginning of years of intricately woven deceptions that slowly started to unravel, never mind not getting into medical school. The books scattered throughout the apartment and the term papers he wrote were all part of Mark's elaborate attempt to sell his lies. He would even leave the apartment until his friend's family and Lori informed him that he had classes to attend. So if he wasn't in school as he claimed, where had Mark been spending all of his time when he should have been studying for difficult medical exams or in class? Mark was frequently spotted smoking, drinking soda, eating hot dogs, and hanging out at a store in his neighborhood. He told the employees that he was a therapist and pleaded with them to keep his smoking habit a secret from Lori because they were members of the Church of Latter-day Saints and were not allowed to smoke. These were not the only lies he told. In an intriguing story, Mark had told Lori's mother that he worked as a registered healthcare assistant and hospital orderly who led group activities rather than therapy sessions at the University of Utah's Neuropsychiatric Institute. According to hospital officials, at work while the case was still dominating international news, Mark's father spoke to the media, saying, "We didn't see it coming, we got completely blindsided by it." People started to speculate that Mark had made up the elaborate lies because he felt pressured by his family, as his father and brother were doctors and another brother was an electrical engineer. Mark also wore a shirt tag that read Franz, but he says it wasn't an officially issued name tag. He chose the name from a Saturday Night Live episode that featured two narcissistic bodybuilders. Mark strongly denied knowing anything about what happened to Lori, believing him, even after telling his family that he had simply lied about his schooling, which he described as misleading people since it was a small deception that got out of hand. As Lori's family supported Mark during the ongoing search for her, it was discovered that the last time Lori was definitely seen was on Sunday night at a convenience store. The day before she disappeared, she and Mark were captured on security footage, and everything seemed to be going according to plan. What's more intriguing is that Mark was spotted again after 1 a.m. purchasing cigarettes, but Lori was nowhere to be seen. Mark had an explanation. Nothing sinister about Lori going to bed, but something wasn't quite right with investigators. The new mattress is a fan of crime, which he likely thought was particularly suspicious. Investigators agreed, and they soon went to the church Mark attended to look through the dumpster's contents and discovered an old, used mattress. Oddly, the top part of the mattress was missing. Mark provided an explanation once more, but this time it was not why he had disposed of the old mattress in the church dumpster rather than the one at his flat. He stated that he and Lori had done it because she had a heavy monthly period and it was bleeding. Even after Mark's lies were exposed and the physical evidence didn't support his story, investigators still weren't entirely satisfied with that response, and soon the timeline he provided about Lori's disappearance was coming apart, leading them to believe that Lori never even went for her morning jog. Lori was not the last person to drive the car, as evidenced by the close examination of her vehicle, which revealed that the seat and car mirrors had been adjusted for someone much larger than her, about 5'8" and 115 pounds, and worst of all, blood in the back seat, which was described as a blood transfer stain, which occurs when wet blood from one object touches another. With Mark's consent, detectives examined the apartment in greater detail. In the process of searching the bedroom, officers discovered bloodstains on the headboard and nightstand. Upon closer inspection, one of the officers opened the drawer and discovered a sheathed knife, further proving that Lori had never left to go for her run. With a nervous laugh, Mark, who had been with them the entire time, explained that he had the knife because he was a scout. The officer saw what looked to be a fingerprint and a patch of blood on the blade. Following this discovery, police requested a warrant to perform a more thorough search, and asked Mark to vacate the apartment. Nobody could have foreseen that there would be even more unsettling truths that were still to be discovered, even though it was obvious that Mark was a suspect in his wife's disappearance. Crashing down on July 24th, 5 days after Lori disappeared. When Mark's father and brothers confronted him about what had happened to her, a relative of Lori soon spoke out, requesting that volunteers stop looking for her due to the terrifying story Mark told his family. It's unclear why Mark came clean at that time, but it's possible that he knew he couldn't keep this lie any longer given his other lies that had already been revealed. Mark clarified that the couple got into a fight on the evening of July 18th when Lori confronted him about his other life, his numerous lies, and their upcoming move. You can see that Lori's co-workers remember that she was moved to tears. They thought she had gotten in touch with someone at the University of North Carolina Chapel Hill's financial aid office to arrange for Mark on Friday, July 16th, just 3 days before she vanished and the day of their farewell party. However, an administrator informed her that there was no record of Mark being enrolled there, even placing Lori on hold and contacting the American Medical College Application Service to confirm that Mark hadn't even applied. Despite being devastated by the news that she had left work early, Lori and Mark showed up at the farewell party, as if nothing had occurred, is because Mark had deceived her once more, telling her that he had spoken with the same administrator and that there had been an error with the computer's incoming student list. Lori even called the school back and left a voicemail, saying that Mark had straightened everything out. Her voicemail stated that she wanted the administrator to call her back and reassure her that everything is fine, not that she doesn't trust her husband, but for her own peace of mind. It's possible that Lori's skepticism stemmed from the fact that this wasn't the first time she had caught Mark lying. By Monday, she was already missing. Back in 2000, Lori told a friend that Mark had deceived her about attending college for 1 semester. Little did she realize that was just the beginning of the proverbial lie iceberg, and she must have guessed that Mark was lying again because she finally confronted him. Mark claimed that Lori eventually went to bed while he stayed up for approximately an hour playing video games. 2 neighbors who lived close to the couple came forward, one claiming that she heard loud screams coming from the apartment around midnight on the 18th, and the other claiming that they heard a male voice saying, "This is it. It's all over," after finding his .22 rifle among their packed items. He entered the bedroom and shot Lori in the head while she was sleeping, methodically marking her body and disposing of the murder weapon and bloody mattress. By placing them in various dumpsters, Mark can be seen inspecting his fingernails and even checking his watch when he was seen on the convenience store surveillance footage at 1:30 a.m. without Lori. Had he been out disposing of the evidence of her murderer, or was he preparing to carry out the horrifying act captured on camera? The following day, he went to buy a new mattress, probably hoping that no one would notice that the first one had been thrown away before pulling off another complex ruse. This time, Lori's acts and behavior suggested that he had vanished. Mark seems to have had narcissistic personality disorder. These people usually come across as charming and amazing until you start to peel back the layers of the reality they show you. When someone starts to confront them, they get furious that someone would even consider doubting their word. They also display traits including a tendency toward grandiosity and self-importance, believing they are unique, needing adulation, and expecting to be recognized for their superiority. Dreams of unbounded success and power a lack of empathy, such as an unwillingness to acknowledge or sympathize with the needs and feelings of others, combined with brilliance, beauty, or ideal love. The enormous question of why yes added to the unfathomable horror of Lori's death. Although Lori had exposed Mark's deceit, her family was confident that Lori could have forgiven him. In fact, her brother even said that Mark didn't need to be a doctor or president whatever he did. As long as he was trying his hardest, she would still have loved him. It's thought that Lori wrote the typewritten note that was eventually discovered in the couple's spare bedroom, but it's unclear exactly when she did. In the letter, she writes, "I want to grow old with you, but I can't do it under these conditions. I can't imagine life with you. If things don't change, perhaps this is why Mark killed her." Lori was threatening to leave him if he didn't hire a forensic psychologist. Regarding Mark's potential motivations and apparent pathological lying, Dr. Kathy Yates stated that as he grew up and witnessed other family members succeed, he was absent. He felt that he deserved more than he was receiving in life, but he didn't want to devote his energies to reaching the kinds of goals that he most likely could have accomplished. Despite Mark's confession, Lori's body was missing for months, and despite intensive searches using cadaver dogs, there was no sign of her until Lori's highly decomposed body was found on October 1st, nearly 3 months after she had vanished. Because of the body's decomposed state, it was impossible to determine whether Lori was pregnant at the time of her death. Mark was arrested on August 2, 2004 on suspicion of aggravated murder. Although this case appears to be over, Mark continued his shocking behavior while incarcerated, signing and sending autographs for a website that specializes in murder memorabilia after this was discovered. The sentencing guidelines for aggravated murder were then raised to 15 years to life, a law change that has been referred to as Lori's Law in her honor. Eventually, Lori's father had her last name removed from her headstone, leaving her maiden name Source. Despite his agreement to stop, Mark continued to write his life tale, which has not yet been released. Mark Hacking received a term ranging from 6 years to life in prison following this disclosure. Although such brief term was in compliance with Utah law at the time, it did appear unduly mild to others. The Utah Board of Pardons and Parole, however, scheduled a hearing to reevaluate Mark's sentence in reaction to public criticism and ultimately decided that he would not be eligible for parole until 2035.